On August 1st, 1995, a piece of paper came across my wife's desk at work. It described the Bosnian student project in a single page, and it had Doug's name on it. Doug and I go back somewhat over 50 years, going back to something called the Committee of Returned Volunteers, and I won't even bother to tell you what that's all about. We're the sort of friends who would lose track of one another and then pick up track after a long time. I called him up, and he told me there were 4 students in New Jersey as well. And Rutgers, the university where I was already a faculty member for over 20 years, is the flagship university of the state, and we didn't have any. So he said he would send me some packets to look at. Next day, FedEx delivers 15 packets. It was stacked like that. I hadn't been there 20 years for no reason. I knew my way around the bureaucracy. I called up some people in the admissions office, and 3 of them and myself formed an ad hoc committee on Bosnian student admission. I made copies of all 15 for each of the other 3, and we sat down with a coffee pot, and each of us read all 15 files. We wanted to be absolutely sure that if we were going to invite someone, that they would be able to succeed at the rigors of Rutgers. We didn't want to bring somebody in, as Doug has mentioned, and have to send them back to a camp somewhere in Europe. There were 4 students where we had enough information to be absolutely certain that they would succeed academically. 2 of them were guys, 2 of them were girls. My wife and I have raised 2 daughters. We know how to do that. We have not raised sons. We don't know how to do that, although we have learned something through the Bosnian Student Project. 5 weeks after August 1st, Irma got off the airplane at Kennedy Airport. Excuse me. She was a week late for the beginning of classes, owing to a screw-up with the bureaucracy of her visa. She had a rotten head cold. My daughter, then a student also at Rutgers, had set up her room with linens and drapes and what have you, bought her books, because I had enrolled her in classes. She spent one night at our house and then moved into her dorm, and the day after that started classes and made the dean's list. She continued to do that. She had wanted to become a doctor initially, but Irma would have made the world's worst doctor. She was not the sort who could handle the patient relationships. But it was a secure profession. She thought that she could do that, and she was very good academically, but she finally realized it was not for her. She became a chemistry major, ultimately took a job after she had moved on for a year. Couldn't stand the laboratory she was in. It was run by a bunch of jerks. Went into finance, got a master's degree in finance, and has done very well ever since. The backstory was pretty horrible. Her father was in the Bosnian army, had a desk job teaching ethics to Bosnian recruits. He grew disillusioned with the corruption. He couldn't leave, though. The Red Cross brokered a convoy of women and children to leave Sarajevo for Croatia as refugees. Only women and children. They left. The Serbs stopped them in the suburbs for 3 days in terror. There's this tall, willowy, very beautiful Bosnian girl, and she won't talk about that. But she's come out okay. After a while, Doug sent me another packet. That became Sinella, who now has a nice job in New York as a financial analyst. Makes more money than I ever had. And is married to an FBI agent. She had to be vetted by the FBI before they could marry. Had she been turned down, he would either have to break the engagement or leave the FBI. She passed. Then they used her for various things. And then came Gordon, Gordon Dukovich from Du Bois. She came as a 13-year-old kid. She'd done a year and a half of high school in the town of Pula, a refugee camp in Croatia. I put her with some friends of mine in a nearby town. She did a year and a half at North Brunswick High School, and her final semester was the preparator for the chemistry lab. She qualified for second-year courses in her first year of college, so we had no trouble getting her into Rutgers. She took second-year courses in her first year. Organic chemistry had 1,200 students at that time, and she was the top of the class. Many of the faculty there consider her to have been the best chemistry major they've ever had, full stop. In her first 2 months in this country, she performed in one of the Greek tragedies on off Broadway in a small theater in the Round, in Greenwich Village. This little runt comes out onto the stage, and all eyes go to her. She has a sort of magnetic personality. All you have to do is look at her, and you're going to pay attention. She carried that performance, and she's an extraordinary teacher. She's now a professor of chemistry at University of Colorado in Boulder. I see her periodically. She's an international superstar. So it is going. The model that we used was that the university provided scholarships for the resident tuition from the central administration. I got that early cooperation because the executive vice president at the time when we started the project was the son of a Holocaust survivor, and his successor, an economist, was very close to us as well. The non-resident tuition, a resident of New Jersey pays a tuition level, but if you're not a resident of New Jersey, it costs twice as much. The women's division of Rutgers, Douglas College, I had a strong relationship with them, and for female students, they supplied the non-resident half. And the students were so successful that all they had to do was say, I've got a student, and they put the scholarship on the table. They didn't even ask what the name was. And every one of the students has succeeded. Many graduated with honors, as a few I've told you about have. Many went on to graduate school of one kind or another. We've had Serbs, 2 of whom married one another. We've had Croats, we've had Bosniaks, and all have done well. We've had a couple of Kosovars, an Albanian and a Kosovar Slav. Room and board in the dorms, non-tuition fees, clothes, books, pocket money, blah, blah. I had to raise that money personally. University would have to submit a Form I-20 to the immigration people so that a student could get a visa. And they would submit that if I would sign my name, giving my personal guarantee that I would raise the additional money. So I was on the hook. The Unitarian Society in East Brunswick, where I lived, offered to serve as fiscal agent for the project, which meant they kept the books. And that meant that if someone made a contribution, they got a tax deduction. What's more, nobody would ever want me to be their bookkeeper. We had 2 funds at the Unitarian Society, the general fund and the special fund. The general fund was much the larger, and if you made a contribution, that's where it went, unless you specified otherwise. That was used to pay term bills and big ticket items when there was a clear paper trail. But if somebody needed a winter coat, or if their car broke down and needed a sudden repair, the special fund could do that. For each family, I found a host. For each student, I found a host family. Most of these were successful, a few were not, and when they were not, they would then come to me and my wife. After a while, we began getting people by referral that did not come from Nyack. One student would find another. An American diplomat at The Hague, at the War Crimes Tribunal, brought a kid named Besmir Fidage to my attention. Besmir was acting as a translator at The Hague. His father was an officer in the Bosnian army, and unlike some officers who led from the desk at the rear, Besmir's father led from the front and was killed. There's a special cemetery in Tuzla for veterans of the war. I'm sure Fatima knows of it. There's a special shrine for him. As the eldest son, he became responsible for his mother, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters. He had good English, so the UN hired him as a translator. And after a while, they transferred him to The Hague. He desperately wanted to go to college, but The Hague paid good money, and he was able to use that to get his family set up. Got one of his sisters into a small high school in the south here, and they put her through college as well. The American diplomat put him in touch with me, and 2 days before he came to the US, I got an email. I can quote it for you verbatim, even though it's years since. Dreams come true, kitty cats. Guess who got to say, Mr. President, here's your bathroom, here's your toothbrush. We at the tribunal hope you enjoy your stay in our prison. That was Slobodan Milosevic. 2 days later, he was here. The university put him into a dorm suite with 3 other guys. Now, Besmir is flamingly gay. You cannot miss it. They put him in with 3 Puerto Ricans. This is not a recipe for success, at least you would think so. But as soon as he made it clear he was never going to make a pass at any of them, he became useful, because if they had a spat with a girlfriend, he could mediate. And there was never any danger he would steal the girlfriend. Next year, he became a resident advisor in the dorm. His life experience was such that he could always put an American student's experience into perspective. He wanted to major in French and Arabic, but the university's offerings in Arabic are weak. The Arabic course is something that's taken by native Arabic speaker students as a way of easily getting an A. Besmir wasn't having that. So after his sophomore year, I sent him to Beirut, American University, to work on his Arabic. From there, he went to France to do his junior year abroad at Tours. And then he went back to Beirut for more Arabic, and finally came back to the States for his final year. And when he graduated, he went back to the tribunal, translating in 4 languages. When he goes into translation mode, it's like watching a switch change. Right? It's like watching an electrical switch change. It becomes like an automaton, absolutely rigorous. He got a PhD in translation studies and makes his living now as a freelance translator. He's one of 2 students of the 16 that we brought to the United States who have remained in Europe. The other is a financial analyst in London, and again, makes more money than I ever have had. Why do this? Why go to all the trouble to give dozens of sermons and talks and importuning my friends and relations and colleagues for money or for help of other kinds? Why stay up at night wondering, am I going to make the budget? When I think about it, I have a bit of an excerpt from a sermon I wrote, a short one. I've modified it. Our prosperous economy has a hollowness to it. Tens of millions of our people have no health insurance. There are large numbers of homeless. We all sense that the good times will vanish. And as production is shifted overseas, our people become insecure, and the easy hold-on power of those who rule us is eroded. Like the rulers of Serbia and Croatia during the war in Bosnia, our rulers know that discontent can be focused away from themselves and the elite who share their rule and their wealth by blaming our problems on the others. For that strategy to work, though, one must have others. And if the others don't exist, they must be created. Who are our others? Blacks, Hispanics, immigrants, white working people, hence the pandering of our politicians and pundits to various forms of bigotry. I'm sure you know all the forms. Insecure people who fear their world is disintegrating around them are easy prey for demagogues, especially when access to information is largely controlled by those in power through control of the mass media. They demonize women on welfare, and thus do we find it unnecessary to come to the defense of the poor, or the working classes, or non-white people. What has happened in Bosnia is not some bizarre, incomprehensible disaster. It's the extreme example of what's happening in many countries, including our own. There, but for the grace of God go we. In helping refugee students, those of us not from the former Yugoslavia, help not only them, but also ourselves. Not only their countries, but ours. We are saying we will not let barbarity overwhelm us. Against it, we deploy a love of humankind and a love of right action. None of us is rich, but we can all do something, and we will be the richer for it. Although those of us who initiated and conducted the Bosnian Student Project are no longer young, I'm 85. We continue to do what we can, but we will pass from the scene. You, whose lives have been touched by our work, now carry an obligation to help however you can. No two people may do it the same way. As Rabbi Tarfon wrote in the Ethics of the Fathers, an ancient text that's become part of the Mishnah, you are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. And you will be the richer for it.